Notice carefully. 100-meter-high tsunami is sweeping in. The passengers on the plane are terrified, all screaming in shock. Some even want to get off the plane, but it's already too late. A girl looks out the window as the gigantic wave approaches from all directions. In the next second, the plane is completely submerged. People are engulfed by the seawater, and the tsunami continues. A few people had just gotten out of the car and were running desperately towards the mountaintop, with the tsunami approaching behind them at a speed of 700 kilometers per hour. Others are escaping at sea on inflatable boats, the throttle fully open, yet the tsunami behind shows no sign of slowing down. They are racing against death. The phone that the man uses for navigation also runs out of battery. To make matters worse, there's another tsunami ahead. They are struggling to survive between two tsunamis. The two tsunamis are about to meet, seemingly ready to completely engulf them. At the critical moment, the man turns into a nearby canyon. Looking back, the two tsunamis collide head-on, instantly creating colossal waves. Fortunately, the energy of the two tsunamis cancels each other out, allowing them to survive by a fluke. However, others caught in the tsunami aren't as lucky. The entire small island is under attack from a large-scale tsunami, with continuous house collapses and countless casualties. This disaster had actually been detected by experts long ago. The incident started with a sightseeing boat. Tourists came near the volcano, and a woman jumped off the boat to swim. Before long, bubbles started appearing on the water surface, and people realized the woman hadn't come ashore but drifted from under the boat. Toxic gas floated up from the sea surface, prompting the captain to decide on an immediate return. Just then, the glass at the bottom of the boat shattered due to the high temperature, and everyone perished. However, the relevant departments didn't pay attention to this incident. Since this is a volcanic island, the emission of toxic gases is considered normal. Moreover, the island was in peak tourist season, with many people vacationing there. The government didn't want to incur losses. But was the situation really so simple? One day, two geologists went to the mountains for exploration and accidentally discovered a fissure. This fissure wasn't there 2 days ago, and there was also a high concentration of sulfur dioxide. Jenny immediately sensed something was wrong. Based on data analysis, Jenny deduced that if the volcano erupted again, it would cause 500 cubic kilometers of rock to slide into the sea. Once flushed into the sea, the triggered seawater could cause a massive tsunami. She immediately reported this to her superiors. The bald one claimed that volcanic eruptions causing fissures was a normal occurrence and accused Jenny, a novice, of making a fuss over data without concrete evidence. The next day, Jenny and her partner climbed the mountain again, following the previous route. Suddenly, the mountain ahead collapsed, potentially validating Jenny's hypothesis. The two quickly took out instruments to measure. Meanwhile, other experts discovered a massive rise in toxic gas on the mountain. The bald one ordered the evacuation of all tourists on the mountain, and called Jenny to tell her to descend quickly. As soon as the words were spoken, the gas erupted. The two immediately ran down the mountain, encountering camping tourists along the way. Jenny rushed to warn them, saying it was too dangerous, and urging them to leave quickly, advising them to pour water on a towel and cover their mouths and noses. But the smoke grew thicker, and they got separated after just a few steps. Jenny accidentally fell and rolled down the slope. When she woke up, she was already in the hospital, having been brought back by the rescue team. Her companion was still unconscious from poisoning, and the other tourists weren't as lucky. They all perished. The bald one reviewed Jenny's data, noting that while toxic gases had erupted, there was no certainty that volcanic ash and lava would follow. Jenny insisted that such a trend had already emerged, requiring immediate evacuation of the populace. However, the bald one told her that years ago, he too had noticed similar anomalies, and, after reporting to his superiors, issued a warning that the volcano might erupt, mobilizing hundreds of millions of dollars for evacuation, which turned out to be much ado about nothing. He was almost demoted. So this time he insisted on irrefutable evidence to prove Jenny's hypothesis before proceeding with any further action. Jenny continued her monitoring, finding the fissure slowly expanding and volcanic ash appearing at the surface. Meanwhile, tourist Mary and her family were on vacation, and hearing her parents arguing outside, Mary bought a plane ticket to leave. Just after boarding the plane, the bald one discovered that the volcanic ash was rising ever higher, ready to erupt at any moment. He then ordered all flights to be grounded. However, by the time the pilot of Mary's plane heard the order, it was too late. The plane had just taken off when the volcanic ash erupted. Despite the pilot's hurried change of course, the plane plunged into the ash cloud, damaging its engines. Meanwhile, Mrs. Lai received a message that her daughter had taken a flight and hurriedly informed Mr. Lai. The two watched in horror as a plane flew overhead, crashing in the distance, giving them a bad premonition. Many survivors were sent to the hospital, and the couple anxiously searched for their daughter, but never found her. Until they saw, through the doors of the operating room, a blonde girl lying inside. Mrs. Lai quickly asked the nurse for the name of the patient being rescued, hoping it was her child. However, her frantic demeanor made the nurse suspect she was there to cause trouble, and Mrs. Lai was taken away by the police. Shortly afterward, the police showed the couple the passenger list, which indeed included Mary's name, but none of the survivors were Mary. Mrs. Lai repeatedly asked the police if someone might have been missed, but the answer was always no. There was no Mary among the survivors. The couple was devastated, returning to their hotel like walking corpses, only to find Mary at home, alive. They hugged their child tightly, feeling the warmth and relief of having found what they thought was lost. It turns out Mary, while on the plane, saw a message from a friend advising her to talk things over with her parents, which was why she survived. Back with the bald one, a conference with senior officials was underway, discussing the current situation. At that moment, the fissure continued to widen and could completely break open in a matter of hours, leading to an unimaginably disastrous tsunami. However, the senior officials, fearing chaos, forbade issuing any warnings, leaving the bald one powerless. He urged Jenny and other colleagues to leave as soon as possible, as although the airport was shut, ferries were still running, allowing for early departure. Meanwhile, he vowed to fight to the very end. Jenny embraced the bald one, bidding him farewell. Returning home, she found her brother causing trouble due to drinking and on the verge of being arrested by the police. If he got taken in, they would miss the best chance to leave the island. Jenny rushed to intervene, claiming to be his sister and responsible for taking him home. In the chaos, a scuffle with the police ensued, leading to Jenny being arrested for assaulting an officer while her brother was unharmed. Simultaneously, the Foreign Ministry held a secret meeting. La Palma Island witnessed fatalities from the gas emission incident, and then the plane crash caused by volcanic ash. Scientists predicted that next, a massive rock slide into the sea would occur, triggering a tsunami, potentially the worst natural disaster in human history. The minister instructed his staff to treat this information as a national secret, prohibiting any leaks. Yet among the staff was Mary's uncle, who couldn't ignore his family's vacation on the island. He discreetly searched for ferries departing the island, finding only one operating, and promptly called Mrs. Lai, providing the ferry's location, with only 20 minutes left to board. The family hastily gathered their belongings, but Mary didn't understand why they had to leave despite planning a vacation. She went to fetch her friend, intending to leave together, but got no response after knocking for a long time. Her mother, fearing a lack of time, urged Mary to depart first, but she refused to leave. Mrs. Lai insisted they proceed. The family waited long by the road without catching a cab. As time grew short, Mr. Lai targeted a nearby parked car, urging the family to get in. Hearing the commotion, the car's owner chased them, but Mr. Lai sped off. After a difficult journey, they arrived at the pier, but were blocked by a barricade. The car owner caught up with them, and Mr. Lai instructed his wife and children to board the ship first, himself getting held back. After emptying his wallet, the owner let him go. However, the ferry had already departed when Mr. Lai finally arrived, leaving him watching his family sail away. Returning to find a rented boat, he faced the evacuation alarm as shops shuttered. Fortunately, Mr. Lai met a neighbor who knew of a boat moored below. After spending a hefty amount for 2 seats, an explosion echoed behind them as the volcano erupted, with lava spewing forth. A woman with a baby wanted aboard, but the captain claimed there was no space. Out of compassion, Mr. Lai gave up his seat. Volcanic ash continually rained down, and Mr. Lai, exhausted, sat by the roadside, calling his wife to ensure his family's safety. Consoled by their departure, he bid his wife farewell. Meanwhile, Jenny remained detained, with her brother pleading with the officer to release her, as the lava was imminent, and they had to flee. Yet the officer insisted she lacked the authority to release anyone without approval. Another officer entered, warning of the pressing danger, urging them to forget work as the area was doomed. The female officer left the keys and departed. The brother hurriedly retrieved them, unlocking Jenny's cell, freeing a fellow captive simultaneously. Little did they know this benevolent gesture would soon bring harm. Once out, they witnessed the volcano erupting once more. Mr. Lai informed them that the harbor had no boats. The brother recalled a canoe by the shore from previous dives, and the 3 hurried there. Luckily, the canoe remained. Just as they prepared to set sail, the released man appeared with a gun, threatening them to leave. The brother raised his hands, but during a call, he lunged at the man, leading to a struggle in which the man shot him. Jenny rushed to her brother's side in his final moments, urging her to live well. He then passed away. Mr. Lai charged recklessly forward, but despite his size, he was overpowered and forced underwater, nearing asphyxiation. In this dire moment, Mr. Lai grasped a stone underwater, smashing it against the attacker's head and holding him underwater until lifeless. After dealing with the threat, Mr. Lai urged Jenny to depart quickly, brandishing the gun to deter others trying to board. Together, they left on the boat. Concurrently, Mary informed her uncle that they had lost contact with their father, pleading for help. Her uncle consulted tidal experts, simulating potential safe zones during the wave onset. Calculations revealed that the waves would converge and cancel out at another island, making a corner their potential refuge, a safety house of sorts. Armed with these coordinates, the uncle approached the minister, hoping the news briefing would share this information to rescue more people. Yet the minister refused, fearing liability for any ensuing fatalities, accusing the uncle of clouded judgment due to familial ties. Meanwhile, Mary and her family reached the airport. Mrs. Lai feigned her husband being behind them, securing 4 wristbands. As Jenny spotted a friend in the queue, wanting to join her, Mrs. Lai cautioned, "If things worsen and you're not by my side, what then?" Mary assured her return, satisfying Mrs. Lai to board with her son. Mary sifted through the crowd to her friend, hearing of the impending departure, yet her friend lacked a wristband. In that moment, Mary handed over Mr. Lai's wristband. Elsewhere, at the Geology Institute, the bald one and a colleague arrived at the eruption site, resigned to a bold ending since escape was impossible. The colleague uncorked wine, determined to face impending death with dignity. Finally, the fissure fully ruptured, sending vast volumes of rock tumbling into the sea, instantly creating massive shockwaves, reverberating towards the other island, impacting all on-board planes. The frightened passengers screamed, worsening Mary's mother's anxiety. Still awaiting Mary, she led her son off the plane to search. Yet, fate played a cruel trick, for as they disembarked, Mary and her friend boarded, leading to an unfortunate mess. Meanwhile, their other family member, the uncle, finally resolved to act, disregarding the minister's objections at a press conference. Holding aloft the safety house coordinates, he implored viewers to head there, urging disseminating the message island-wide. Simultaneously, he relayed the details to Mr. Lai, who pulled Jenny along, racing for the coordinates, with the tsunami looming ever closer. Truly, a race against death. Concurrently, Mary phoned her mother, learning they had disembarked, passing along her uncle's coordinates. Yet now communications were severed, with no maps accessible. Luckily, her brother previously sketched a layout of the island, clearly marking the address. Following staff directions, the two hastened forward. Everyone now raced against time, precious little of which the tsunami left them. Island residents could already visually perceive its approach. As the plane prepared to depart, a sudden halt occurred, with fissures forming on the ground as the tsunami struck. Passengers clamored to be let out. Mary stared out the window. At the same moment, on the island's other side, Mrs. Lai urged her son onwards to the safety house. On the sea, Mr. Lai pressed onward, with the tsunami looming imminently. Unfortunately, the navigation failed, leaving him directionless, left to gamble on the path forward. Barely turning the corner, the two colossal waves collided, as predicted, canceling out, sparing them, granting survival. Landing ashore, they found their escape joined by other refugees. Anxiously, Mr. Lai queried about island conditions, learning near total destruction. Astonishingly, he, who hadn't boarded a ship, ultimately survived. Sitting to regain composure, he thanked Jenny. His sorrow was interrupted by a familiar voice, turning to find his son running towards him. Elated, Mr. Lai embraced him, reunited with his wife, urgently inquiring about Mary's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Mary awoke amid plane wreckage. Her friend lay unresponsive. Panicking, she moved her friend to the aisle, administering CPR. A surviving flight attendant joined the effort, assisting with artificial respiration. Together, they finally revived the friend. Supporting her, they emerged to witness a post-apocalyptic landscape. The tsunami devastated the Canary Islands, impacting from West Africa to the Americas and Europe. Government rescue efforts scoured survivors, the losses unfathomable, the most severe natural calamity recorded. Yet as Mary's uncle learned, everyone in the safety zone survived, including his sister. A helicopter descended, with Mary and her friend alighting. Overjoyed, Mary rushed forward, reuniting with her family, grateful for their survival. The film concluded.